that's been waiting on a harvest a long time. You ought to give God a harvest praise.
What if some of the richest black pastors in America weren't serving God, but using him for private jets, mansions, and millions? From shocking scandals to jaw-dropping luxury, these 15 pastors turned the pulpit into pure profit. Buckle up. Hit like if you're ready for the truth. Subscribe and comment below. Were they prophets or predators? Let's dive in.
Hide me in the cliff!
T.D. Jakes.
The prophet was growing in the scarcity.
Few modern pastors embody the tension between faith and fame quite like T.D. Jakes. As the founder of the Potter's House in Dallas, he built one of the most influential megachurches in the United States, with reported weekly attendance exceeding 30,000. His rise from a small congregation to a global platform reflects not only spiritual leadership, but also sharp organizational vision. Jakes expanded far beyond the pulpit. He became a best-selling author, a film producer behind mainstream releases, and the driving force behind massive conferences like Woman Thou Art Loosed, which have filled arenas with thousands of attendees. Through television publishing and digital media, including platforms like YouTube, his message has reached millions worldwide. Financial estimates vary, but multiple public reports place his net worth somewhere between $20 million and $50 million as of the mid-2020s. That success, however, fuels ongoing debate. Critics argue that his model reflects the commercialization of the prosperity gospel, pointing to revenue streams from books, films, and ticketed conferences as evidence that ministry has blended with business. His large estate and polished celebrity-adjacent lifestyle often become focal points for those questioning whether spiritual leadership should mirror such visible wealth. In recent years, scrutiny has intensified. Jakes has faced allegations of sexual misconduct, which he has publicly denied, and no criminal conviction has resulted. In 2025, reports of a serious health scare described as a heart-related incident led to him stepping back from the role of senior pastor, marking a significant transition in his leadership journey. Yet, his influence remains undeniable. Supporters see him as a transformative voice who modernized ministry and empowered millions. Critics remain unconvinced, asking whether the pursuit of mashtab influence risks overshadowing humility. Ultimately, his story captures a central question of this era. Can a pastor build a global empire and still fully reflect the simplicity of Christ? Al Sharpton.
You got to fight with and you running around whimpering and moaning.
Al Sharpton stands at a unique crossroads of faith, politics, and media, far beyond the traditional image of a pastor. Ordained as a Pentecostal minister at a young age, he later founded the National Action Network, NAN, in 1991, positioning himself as a leading voice in the fight against racial injustice in the United States. Over the decades, he became a familiar presence at the center of high-profile civil rights cases, often standing alongside families affected by police violence and discrimination. His influence expanded even further through mainstream media. As the host of Politics Nation on MSNBC, Sharpton transitioned from the pulpit to a national platform interviewing presidents, shaping political discourse, and maintaining direct access to power. He has met with multiple U.S. presidents and remains a key figure in modern activism. However, this visibility has not come without controversy. Financial scrutiny has followed him for years. Around 2014, public records indicated that NAN and related entities had accumulated over $4.5 million in tax liabilities, including unpaid payroll taxes. While efforts were later made to address these debts, critics argue that such issues raise concerns about financial management and accountability within organizations built on public trust. Beyond finances. Sharpton's critics have long accused him of leveraging high-profile tragedies to maintain media attention and personal influence. They claim his presence at major incidents often coincides with increased visibility for both his organization and his public persona. Supporters strongly reject this view, arguing that his activism has brought national attention to injustices that might otherwise have been ignored. This dual identity minister and media figure raises a deeper question. Has Sharpton used his foundation in faith as a stepping stone to broader influence, or has he expanded the reach of that faith into arenas where it can drive real change? In the end, his legacy is complex. To some, he is a relentless advocate for justice. To others, he represents how easily moral authority can evolve into personal brand and power.
But God can take your mess and turn it into a message.
Creflo Dollar.
Woke up in your right mind. Hallelujah.
Creflo Dollar is one of the most recognizable figures in modern megachurch culture and one of the most debated. As the founder of World Changers Church International, he grew a small Bible study in the 1980s into a global ministry with over 30,000 members alongside international campuses, television broadcasts, and a large digital following. Dollar's message has long centered on the prosperity gospel, the belief that faith, positive confession, and financial giving can lead to material and spiritual blessings. For supporters, this teaching offers hope and empowerment, especially to those seeking economic stability. But for critics, it raises concerns about how faith and money intersect. That tension reached a peak in 2015 when his ministry launched a public campaign to raise $65 million for a Gulfstream G650 private jet, arguing it was necessary for global evangelism. The backlash was immediate and widespread from media outlets, fellow pastors, and even some members of his own congregation. Facing intense criticism, the campaign was eventually withdrawn. Later reports indicated that a jet was acquired through a separate arrangement involving a private entity, which only deepened skepticism among detractors. Controversy surrounding Dollar isn't limited to finances. In 2012, he was arrested following allegations of physically assaulting his teenage daughter during a domestic dispute. The charges were later dropped, but the incident remained a significant blow to his public image. Today, Dollar continues to preach and lead his ministry, maintaining a loyal following. His teachings on sowing seeds, giving money with the expectation of divine return, remain central to his message and equally central to criticism. To supporters, he represents faith in action and the possibility of abundance.
When she found it.
To critics, he has become a symbol of excess, where ministry, wealth, and influence blur into something far more controversial than traditional church leadership.
It's just throwing people away.
Juanita Bynum.
The call of God on your life. You can't get it by yourself.
Juanita Bynum rose to national prominence as a fiery preacher, gospel singer, and self-described prophetess whose message resonated strongly with women navigating faith relationships and personal transformation. Her breakout moment came with the sermon, "No More Sheets," a candid and emotionally charged message about sexuality and spiritual discipline that quickly became a cultural touchstone in Christian circles. Building on that momentum, Bynum expanded her ministry into large-scale conferences, books, and music projects. Many of her events drew thousands, but also came with high ticket prices, sparking debate about whether spiritual gatherings were becoming commercialized. Her influence peaked in the early 2000s, when she was often described as one of the most recognizable female voices in modern ministry. Her personal life, however, brought intense public scrutiny. In 2002, she married Bishop Thomas Weeks III in a lavish ceremony widely reported to cost around $1 million. By 2007, the marriage collapsed in a highly publicized divorce after she accused Weeks of domestic violence, an incident that drew national media attention and blurred the line between private trauma and public spectacle. Bynum also made headlines for openly discussing her past struggles, including drug use and what she described as an alternative lifestyle before her religious transformation. While some viewed this transparency as powerful testimony, critics argued that such revelations combined with her dramatic preaching style helped sustain her visibility and drive sales of books, sermons, and conference tickets. Despite the controversies, Bynum has remained active in ministry, continuing to preach record music and host events. Supporters see her as a survivor who turned pain into purpose. Critics remain skeptical, questioning whether her platform sometimes leans more toward performance than pastoral care. Her story ultimately reflects a broader tension. When testimony becomes central to a brand, where is the line between authentic transformation and entertainment shaped for influence and profit?
To become, give me twice as much.
Eddie Long.
Your glory, and don't hide me in the cliff.
Eddie Long was once one of the most powerful and influential pastors in the United States, leading New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Lithonia, Georgia. Under his leadership, the church grew rapidly to over 25,000 members, becoming a major hub for the Black Christian community and attracting celebrities, politicians, and national attention. Long's preaching style, intense, charismatic, and authoritative, helped him build not only a spiritual following, but also significant political influence with connections reaching high levels of government. At the height of his prominence, Long was also known for a luxurious lifestyle, including high-end clothing, expensive cars, and a public image that often resembled that of a motivational leader or a public figure more than a traditional pastor. For supporters, this reflected success and divine favor. For critics, it raised early concerns about excess and the growing overlap between ministry and celebrity culture. Everything changed in 2010, when 4 young men filed lawsuits accusing Long of sexual coercion, alleging he used his position of authority to initiate inappropriate relationships while offering gifts, trips, and financial support. The accusations shocked the nation, especially because Long had been outspoken in condemning homosexuality from the pulpit. He denied the allegations, and the cases were ultimately settled out of court in 2011 with no criminal conviction. Still, the damage to his reputation was profound and immediate. Membership declined, public trust eroded, and his once dominant image never fully recovered. In the years that followed, Long continued to preach, but under the shadow of controversy. His health later deteriorated, and in 2017 he passed away at the age of 63 after battling an aggressive form of cancer. Today, his legacy remains deeply divided, remembered both for building a megachurch empire and for a scandal that permanently reshaped how many view power, accountability, and integrity in the pulpit.
God has already set up.
Reverend Ike.
I am naming the miracle that I want from God.
Reverend Ike was one of the earliest and most controversial figures to redefine what modern prosperity preaching could look like. Rising to prominence in New York during the late 1960s and 1970s, he built a massive following at the United Palace, a former theater in Manhattan that he transformed into a vibrant place of worship. At a time when most pastors emphasized humility and sacrifice, Ike stood out for doing the exact opposite. His message, which he called the science of living, centered on the idea that thought, faith, and financial giving could directly produce wealth and success. He rejected traditional narratives of suffering instead, teaching that poverty was a mindset to be overcome. His sermons were catchy, confident, and designed for mass appeal, often broadcast on hundreds of radio stations across the United States. But what truly set him apart was his lifestyle. Reverend Ike openly embraced wealth, driving multiple Rolls-Royces, wearing custom-tailored suits, and displaying expensive jewelry without apology. His now famous line, "The best thing you can do for the poor is not be one of them," perfectly captured both his philosophy and the controversy surrounding it. To supporters, it was empowering. To critics, it sounded dismissive and deeply out of touch. Skeptics argued that his teachings resembled a get-rich-quick formula where faith was packaged as a tool for financial gain rather than spiritual growth. They accused him of turning religion into a performance-driven enterprise, benefiting more from donations than the average follower ever would. Yet his influence was undeniable. Many later pastors associated with the prosperity gospel adopted elements of his style: bold messaging, media expansion, and unapologetic wealth. Reverend Ike passed away in 2009, but his legacy remains deeply polarizing. He is remembered both as a pioneer who reshaped religious broadcasting and as one of the most extreme examples of how easily the line between faith and financial ambition can blur.
Right here, right now.
Jamal Bryant.
If it is God's will, it's God's bill.
Jamal Bryant has built a reputation as one of the most dynamic and visible voices in the modern black church, but also one of its most debated. He first rose to prominence as the founder of Empowerment Temple AME Church in Baltimore, launched in 2000. Within a few years, the church grew to over 10,000 members, driven by Bryant's high-energy preaching style and his ability to connect faith with real-world issues like race inequality and youth empowerment. His national profile expanded even further in 2018 when he was appointed senior pastor of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church following the death of Eddie Long. The decision immediately drew attention not just because of the church's history, but because of Bryant's own past controversies. The most significant came in 2008, when his marriage to Giselle Bryant ended after he publicly admitted to infidelity. The divorce was highly publicized, and over the years, additional rumors of affairs have continued to follow him, reinforcing criticism about personal consistency. For a pastor preaching moral accountability, these issues have raised ongoing questions about integrity. At the same time, Bryant has remained deeply involved in social justice activism, frequently speaking out on police brutality, economic inequality, and voting rights. He has marched in protests, addressed national issues from the pulpit, and positioned himself as a bridge between church and community action. Supporters see this as proof of relevance and courage. Critics, however, argue that his visibility often thrives on controversy, that his role sometimes blurs into that of a public personality who benefits from attention as much as from ministry. They question whether the spotlight strengthens his message or overshadows it. Despite the debate, Bryant continues to draw large audiences both in person and online. His charisma is undeniable, yet his story highlights a persistent tension. Can powerful leadership and personal credibility truly align in the public eye? Or will one TMI challenge the other?
But I ain't supposed to do it yet.
Marvin Winans. Marvin Winans carries a legacy that blends music ministry and influence. As a member of the legendary Winans family, often called gospel royalty, he first gained national recognition through music before founding Perfecting Church in Detroit in 1989. What began with fewer than 200 members grew into a thriving congregation, establishing him as both a respected pastor and a celebrated gospel artist. Winans' preaching has often included elements associated with the prosperity gospel, encouraging believers to trust God for not only spiritual growth but also financial breakthrough. For many followers, this message is uplifting, offering hope in a city like Detroit that has faced decades of economic hardship, unemployment, and population decline. However, that same context has fueled criticism. Winans has been seen driving luxury vehicles and maintaining a lifestyle that appears far removed from the struggles of many in his congregation. To supporters, his success represents God's favor and serves as inspiration. To critics, it highlights a stark contrast, raising questions about whether visible wealth aligns with the realities faced by everyday church members. His national profile surged again in 2012 when he officiated the funeral of Whitney Houston, a globally televised event watched by millions. While many praised his powerful and dignified leadership during the service, controversy followed when reports surfaced that Bobby Brown Houston's ex-husband was not allowed to sit with the family. The situation sparked debate about respect protocol and perception during such a sensitive moment. Despite these moments, Winans continues to lead, preach, and record music, maintaining influence across both church and entertainment spaces. His story reflects a deeper tension within modern ministry when a spiritual leader achieves visible success. Does it inspire hope, or does it unintentionally widen the gap between message and reality? Fred Price Sr. Frederick K.C. Price, widely known as Fred Price Sr., stands as one of the foundational figures in the rise of modern prosperity preaching in the United States. In 1973, he founded the Crenshaw Christian Center in Los Angeles, starting with a small congregation that would eventually grow to over 16,000 members. His most iconic achievement was the construction of the Faith Dome in 1989, a massive sanctuary seating more than 10,000 people at the time, one of the largest church auditoriums in the country. Price's influence extended far beyond the church walls through his television program, Ever Increasing Faith, which reached millions of viewers nationwide each week. His message was clear and consistent through faith, positive confession, and generous giving. Believers could experience not only spiritual growth, but also financial prosperity. For many, especially those facing economic hardship, this teaching provided a sense of hope and control over their future. However, that same message became the center of intense criticism. Detractors argued that Price placed too much emphasis on money-framing financial success as a primary sign of God's favor. His visible wealth, including luxury cars and a comfortable lifestyle, fueled concerns that the prosperity gospel was being used to justify personal enrichment rather than spiritual guidance. Critics often pointed to a disconnect between the pastor's prosperity and the financial struggles of many congregants. Supporters, on the other hand, saw Price as a trailblazer who challenged limiting beliefs about poverty and encouraged self-improvement education and financial discipline. His teachings influenced an entire generation of pastors who would later build their own megachurch empires. When Price passed away in 2021 at the age of 89, he left behind a complex legacy, one marked by undeniable impact and equally persistent controversy. His life ultimately raises a lasting question: did he redefine faith as empowerment, or did he help transform it into a system increasingly tied to wealth and commercialization? Noel Jones. Noel Jones has long stood out as one of the most charismatic and intellectually compelling figures in modern black ministry. As the senior pastor of the City of Refuge Church in Gardena, California, he leads a congregation of over 17,000 members, drawing audiences with sermons that blend deep theology, psychology, and real-life struggle. His influence extends beyond the pulpit, amplified in part by his connection to his sister, the iconic Grace Jones. Jones's public profile grew significantly in 2013 when he appeared on the reality TV series Preachers of L.A. The show offered viewers a rare glimpse into the personal lives of megachurch leaders, and for many, it was eye-opening. Scenes featuring luxury cars, tailored suits, and an upscale lifestyle sparked immediate debate. Supporters argued this simply reflected success and discipline. Critics, however, saw it as evidence that celebrity culture had deeply penetrated modern ministry. Another point of ongoing discussion has been Jones's longtime bachelor status. For decades, he remained unmarried while leading a congregation that often emphasizes family values. This led to speculation and criticism from some observers who questioned whether a pastor without a traditional family structure could fully relate to the lives of his members. Others defended his personal choice, arguing that spiritual leadership should not be defined by marital status. Despite the scrutiny, Jones continues to command respect for his preaching. His messages often tackle complex topics: doubt, suffering, emotional healing, in a way that resonates with people navigating real challenges. Yet the tension remains. When a pastor becomes a public figure, appearing on television and embracing a polished image, the focus can shift from message to persona. Jones's story highlights a broader shift in modern Christianity as ministry intersects with media and fame. Can spiritual authenticity survive in a culture increasingly driven by image and visibility? Paul Morton. Paul S. Morton is a towering figure in modern black church history, known for blending ministry music and organizational leadership into a global movement. As the longtime pastor of Greater St. Stephen Full Gospel Baptist Church, he grew a local congregation into a thriving multi-campus church with over 20,000 members at its peak. In 1994, he founded the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship, FGBCF, which expanded to include hundreds of churches and millions of followers worldwide, significantly reshaping the landscape of Baptist charismatic ministry. Morton's influence extends beyond preaching. He is also a respected gospel artist, with songs like "Let It Rain" becoming staples in churches globally. This dual identity as both bishop and musician helped him reach audiences far beyond traditional church settings, while also contributing to his visibility and financial success. At the center of his ministry is a message that often includes elements of the prosperity gospel, encouraging believers to give generously with the expectation of spiritual and material blessings. His conferences, held under the FGBCF banner, have drawn thousands of attendees, but also come with paid registration fees alongside revenue from books, albums, and branded materials. Supporters view these gatherings as transformative spiritual experiences. Critics question whether such structures reflect a growing commercialization of faith. That criticism extends to broader concerns about financial transparency. With a global network generating significant revenue through conferences, church operations, and media, some observers have asked how funds are allocated and how much directly benefits leadership. Morton has consistently pointed to outreach programs, church expansion, and community impact as evidence of responsible stewardship. Despite the scrutiny, his legacy remains influential. After stepping down as senior pastor in 2015, he continued to lead within FGBCF and maintain a presence in gospel music. His story captures a defining tension of modern ministry when a spiritual leader builds a worldwide movement. How do you balance vision influence and financial accountability without losing trust? Carlton Pearson. Carlton Pearson was once one of the fastest rising stars in American Pentecostalism. As the founder of Higher Dimensions Evangelistic Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, he built a thriving congregation of over 5,000 members during the 1990s. With a polished preaching style, national television presence, and close ties to influential leaders like Oral Roberts Pearson, seemed destined to become a defining voice of his generation. Then everything changed. In the early 2000s, Pearson introduced a radical theological shift he called the Gospel of Inclusion. He began teaching that a loving God would not condemn people to eternal hell, and that salvation extended beyond traditional boundaries of belief. This message directly challenged long-standing evangelical doctrine, and the backlash was immediate. Former allies denounced him. Invitations disappeared, and his once thriving church experienced a dramatic collapse, shrinking from thousands to just a few hundred members within a few years. Financial support dried up, and Pearson went from megachurch leader to outsider almost overnight. Unlike many controversies centered on money or scandal, his downfall was rooted in belief. Critics labeled his teachings heretical and dangerous. Supporters, however, saw something different, a leader willing to sacrifice status, influence, and financial security to follow his conviction. His story later reached a wider audience through the film Come Sunday, which portrayed the emotional and spiritual cost of his transformation. In interviews, Pearson openly acknowledged the pain of losing his community reputation and platform, but maintained that he could not ignore what he believed was a deeper understanding of God's love. He passed away in 2023 at the age of 70, leaving behind one of the most polarizing legacies in modern Christianity. Was he a cautionary tale of theological rebellion, or a rare example of someone choosing conviction over comfort, even when it cost him everything? I.V. Hilliard. I.V. Hilliard, founder of New Light Christian Center Church, built one of the largest congregations in Texas, peaking at over 28,000 members. Starting in 1984 with fewer than 30 people, he and his wife grew the ministry into a multi-campus church with a national media presence, mentoring network, and strong influence within prosperity-focused circles. Hilliard's teachings often aligned with the prosperity gospel, emphasizing vision leadership, and the idea that financial giving, commonly framed as sowing seeds, could unlock divine blessings. For many followers, this message provided hope and motivation to pursue upward mobility. But for critics, it raised long-standing concerns about the relationship between faith and money. Those concerns intensified in 2013 when a fundraising letter attributed to Hilliard circulated widely. In it, donors were encouraged to contribute toward a $50,000 repair bill for his personal helicopter, with language suggesting that those who gave could receive a transportation breakthrough in their own lives, such as access to better vehicles or improved mobility. The reaction was swift and largely negative. Critics argued that the appeal exemplified how religious authority could be used to justify funding luxury assets, especially when many congregants faced financial struggles. Supporters countered that such giving should be understood within a broader theological framework, where generosity toward ministry, regardless of the specific need, could bring spiritual and material rewards. Still, the incident became one of the most frequently cited examples in debates about excess within megachurch culture. Despite the backlash, Hilliard continued leading the church until his retirement in 2018, passing leadership to the next generation. His legacy remains sharply divided. To some, he is a visionary builder and mentor. To others, a clear symbol of how easily prosperity teaching can cross into perceived exploitation, raising an enduring question about where faith ends and financial expectation begins. Clarence McClendon. Clarence McClendon rose to prominence as the senior pastor of Full Harvest International Church Building, a following through energetic preaching and a message centered on victory, destiny, and financial breakthrough. His teachings often align with the prosperity gospel, particularly the idea of seed sowing, encouraging believers to give financially with the expectation that God will multiply their blessings. McClendon's visibility expanded significantly in 2013 when he appeared on the reality TV series Preachers of LA. The show offered audiences an inside look at the personal lives of megachurch leaders, and McClendon quickly became one of its most talked-about figures. Viewers saw a lifestyle marked by luxury cars, designer suits, and upscale living, which for some symbolized success, but for others raised serious questions about the contrast between message and lifestyle. His personal life also became part of the public conversation. McClendon's divorce and subsequent remarriage drew criticism from more traditional church audiences who questioned how such experiences aligned with pastoral expectations. While he has continued to emphasize redemption and personal growth, critics argue that these events combined with his media presence blur the line between spiritual leadership and public persona. The concept of seed sowing remains central to the debate around his ministry. Supporters believe it reflects biblical principles of faith and generosity. Detractors, however, argue that it can place financial pressure on followers, especially when paired with visible displays of wealth from leadership. Despite the criticism, McClendon has maintained his platform through preaching media and music, appealing particularly to audiences drawn to motivational and prosperity-centered messages. His story highlights a broader shift in modern ministry when pastors step into reality television and embrace public visibility. Does it amplify their message or expose a growing gap between what is preached and how it is lived? Charles E. Blake Sr. Charles E. Blake Sr. was one of the most influential leaders in global Pentecostalism, serving as the presiding bishop of the Church of God in Christ COGICA denomination with over 6.5 million members worldwide. At the same time, he led West Angeles Church of God in Christ, which grew to more than 25,000 members, becoming a major spiritual and cultural center in Los Angeles. Blake was widely respected for his calm leadership style and his efforts to expand the church's global reach. Under his direction, West Angeles developed significant community programs addressing poverty, education, and social stability. One of his most visible achievements was the construction of a $65 million cathedral completed in the early 2000s, symbolizing both vision and institutional strength. However, such mashtab influence also brought scrutiny. Critics questioned the financial transparency of COGIC, noting that with millions of members contributing tithes and offerings globally, there was limited public visibility into how funds were distributed across the denomination. While there has been no single defining scandal tied directly to Blake personally, the scale of the organization led some observers to call for clearer accountability structures. His comfortable lifestyle, though far less flamboyant than some prosperity-focused pastors, also became part of the conversation. For critics, it raised familiar concerns about the gap between leadership and congregants. For supporters, it reflected the responsibilities and demands of overseeing a global religious institution. Despite these debates, Blake's impact is difficult to overstate. He championed humanitarian efforts, including AIDS relief initiatives in Africa, and maintained relationships with political leaders while guiding one of the largest black church bodies in the world. When he stepped down as presiding bishop in 2021, he left behind a legacy defined by both stability and scale. His story ultimately highlights a central tension in modern ministry when leadership extends across millions of followers. How do you ensure transparency and accountability without diminishing vision and influence? These 15 influential pastors built massive empires through charisma and prosperity preaching, yet their lavish lifestyles and scandals continue to spark intense debate. Were they truly serving God, or did fame and fortune become their real gospel? The line between divine blessing and human ambition remains blurred. What do you believe? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. The truth may lie somewhere in between.